Once you understand how the float property works and you can control its application, you can start using floats to lay out your web pages. Here's an example of a page laid out completely with left floats and right floats. I have a standard 3-column layout with a header and a footer. If we look at the div tags, I have div ID right nav, which is the one over here to the right. I have div left nav over here to the left. I have a top div, which is the header, and then I have a content div in the center labeled content. Notice that the left and the right nav divs are floated. Right here, the left nav. If I go up to the head section of the document where my div tags are defined, my rules there, I've got some margin settings. I've got a clear for both in the footer section. Notice that I need that clear to clear out any floating that's going on above. But if we look at the definitions, the rule definitions for my right nav and left nav, notice that the right nav is floated right, and the left nav up here above it is floated to the left. And that's all it takes to create this 3-column setup with subheadings as well. In addition, the container div tag has a width and a margin, a background, a color, a border, and a line height, but that's really all there is to it. Because I'm floating this div to the right and this one to the left, it makes space for my middle column. Notice that my header up here, which is ID top, look at the rule for that, has a padding property, a background color, and a border bottom property, the border on the bottom. But other than that, I'm leaving it alone, so it fills out the entire width of the browser. Notice that I have no width property, so it just fills out the whole space of the browser. Notice that if I move my browser, it's kind of like a liquid layout, which I'll cover later, so that it flows, filling up the entire width of the browser. Here's the procedure that I go through to create a floated web page. First, I design the layout on paper or in a graphics tool. Then I determine where the site divisions are going to be. Then I determine the widths of the various containers and the elements within them. That's probably the most time-consuming step, is I try to make my widths of my containers about the equivalent length of 50 to 60 characters of the typeface that I'm using. Then I float everything. Even the outermost container element is floated to the left so that I know where it will be in relation to the browser. And then an additional step here would probably be tweaking and modifying the code after looking at the results in a variety of browsers. Using the various CSS rules and position properties and position schemes that I've covered so far, you now have the tools and wherewithal to create quite a number of different types of layouts. Most page layouts in HTML fall in one of 4 categories: fixed, liquid, elastic, and variable fixed width. So let's now move on to the next section of the tutorial and review these various types of web page layouts that are now possible using CSS.